Dear students of class 9A and 9B, welcome to my history class. Today's topic, the Industrial Revolution, and points as I mentioned. I have mentioned 2 points in the board, and rest of the points I shall later mention, and then I shall teach you. For the first 2 points, I am going to teach growth in agriculture. First point, growth in agriculture. The Industrial Revolution and introduction of number of machines helped the rich people to spend their money, to invest their money. It also helped them, it also attracted them to invest their money for the growth of industries. So they initially strengthened the economic stability of the country. Initially, at the same time, they also made money in the interest of themselves. And a number of factories and industries which were established during industrial age, it also helped them to make money, especially those who had huge money. They invested their money for extending industrial areas, industrial belts, by purchasing lands from the peasants and farmers. But at the same time, it was the growth of agriculture. During industrial age, the revolution led to advancement of agriculture also. How? Because there was introduction of machines, new machines, good quality crops, quality seeds, better seeds. Stock breeding also helped to increase to production of cash crops during industrial age. Industrial revolution not only increase the number of factories and industries, not only encourage the discoveries to invent new machines, but at the same time it also introduced, but also the introduction of machinery helped the peasants and farmers to cultivate good quality, to cultivate crops from their agricultural lands. So during industrial age, the agricultural growth also had become a great factor for strengthening the financial stability of the country. Next point, availability of resources. Next point, availability of resources and labor. Agriculture, which had become a great boon for the industrial age and era, it also led to unemployment of those who went to the city in search of jobs. Introduction of new machines and establishment of new factories in cities and towns attracted the villagers to leave their villages. So they left their villages in search of better occupation, better jobs. They reached cities and towns and became factory laborers of low wages because they are unskilled laborers. Because besides large reservoirs of coal and iron ore, availability of large reservoirs of coal and iron ore made England prosperous, made the industrial growth possible in England, because this coal and iron ore found abundance in England. And not only that, the fact that the feudal structure also had been demolished first in England, which also added to England being the most suitable place for industrialization to start. And afterwards, the colonies also proved to be enormous source of natural resources. The colonies of different countries of the world, the England also had established. It also helped England to be self-sufficient, to be more and more helpful, and to be enormous sources of natural resources and raw materials. So the colonies of different parts of the world England made. England utilized its natural resources. England utilized the colonies' raw materials for their industry, also helped them to make surplus production, allowed the manufacturers to have the luxury of experimenting with the variety and quality of the products, and they created. So it was a cycle of plenty bringing in even more plenty. The person who made money, who invested money, they started making it double. This process was going on, and so many people became millionaires. The people who had less amount of money, they by way of investing a little amount of money, within very few years, they all became millionaire, multi-millionaires, because of the opportunities they availed for during the growth and development of industrial era. Next point I am writing. Discovery of new lands. Another important thing of the industrial age was discovery of new lands, discovery of new sea routes by the astronauts. A number of astronauts, they left their countries in search of new lands, in search of discovering new lands, new sea routes, which also enabled them to establish trading relations with East and West. And this part of thinking of different countries of the world helped them to be self-sufficient. The countries which were financially backward, by means of their originalities, by means of their thinkings, they all were able to establish trading relations with East and West. The West became helpful at the cost of the East, because East during that time became more and more powerful, more and more financially advanced than the West. So the Western countries were benefited with the Eastern countries of the world. Why? Because of their prosperity, because of their richness, variety, also attracted millions of countries of the world to come forward. And the help, it also, discovery of new lands and sea routes helped them to extend trade internationally, and also encourage them to set up new towns and cities. And new culture they introduced, which focused on cash crops, became central to producing raw materials. Utilize the concept also helped them to establish colonies, because they heard a lot about the East and initially decided to trade with them. And on reaching there and on staying there, they realized that they all were simple-minded. Their kings, their rulers, their people all were simple-minded. They could not understand the strategy. They could not understand the strategy. They could not understand political complexity, and they all led a very simple life, but they were rich and prosperous. Even people also were prosperous and led a very standard lifestyle. They realized it. They compared themselves. Compared themselves with the. They compared with themselves to the people of different countries of the world, especially Eastern countries of the world, and considered themselves inferior to them. In the Eastern countries, for example, Indonesia, India, China, these were the countries, they were prosperous. About our country, India, we can say our country was prosperous, rich, wealthy, during the period when the foreign traders came to trade with us. So they, after a few days acquaintance with our country's people and rulers, they came to know that they must avail themselves with this opportunity to lead a prosperous life like the Indians, like these countries, and hence they gradually took part in politics, and also uh, not only they continued trade with our country but also started taking part in Indian politics, and ultimately they all became the ruler and established their colonies in our country India, which also helped them to utilize our country's natural resources, our country's raw materials for their industrial growth and development. Industrial revolution helped England to utilize iron core, to utilize coal, which were available, which uh, were available in abundance in England, available, but this availability also encouraged them to establish trade with other countries. At the same time, this country, particularly England, established her colonies in in Asia, Europe, and Africa. Also, help the traders reach, help them to make them more and more, self-sufficient. And ultimately, this was the beginning of a consumerist society. Traders rich with profits needed ways and the means to spend this wealth, which further fueled consumerism. And now availability of capital, trade and commerce became strengthened. Manpower also was required. Discovery of new lands helped the needy people to be a worker in the factories and industries. It started the ugly trade of slave labor also, because during industrial age, the money investors, they by hook or by crook started saving their money, and that's why they needed slave laborers, cheap laborers. That's why the process of practicing slavery started throughout different parts of the world, and it was extremely exploitative in nature. Men were treated, means slaves were treated mercilessly. They had no, they had no dignity, they had no honor. They were treated as wild beasts. Naturally, the money investors, they made their money, they became multi-millionaires at the cost of cheap laborers or slaves, and this established a golden opportunity for all of the countries of the world to be rich, prosperous, and wealthy during industrial age. So industrial age opened a new door for all the countries of whole world to be self-sufficient, to be rich and prosperous, because the countries of Europe, the countries of the Europe and Africa, they were not as prosperous as the countries of the East. That's why the West, after the attack of Constantinople by the Turks, whenever the Turks destroyed the sea route, destroyed the trading routes from west to east, the countries of Europe, they determined to re-establish the trading route with our country, with the East. They decided to establish a trade route between West and East, because they realized that without the cooperation, without having the natural resources and raw materials of East, they would be unable to they would be unable to meet the growing demand of their factories and industries. That's why they re-established trading route between East and West. Up to this, my dear students. Thank you.